Hi guys, welcome if you're new, and thank you for sticking around if you've been with me for a while. Today we're going to chat about finding your art style. I didn't want to flip through my sketchbooks or do a speed paint because this video is not about my personal art style, but is about finding your own unique style. So instead, I'm going to flip through some of my art books to give you something engaging to look at and to go along with the idea that there are as many styles as there are artists. And throughout, I'll also intersperse some pertinent quotes when I feel like they help illustrate the various points. A little disclaimer first though, I am by no means an expert on this, and I'm not making this video to say that I have it all figured out. I'm just offering some insights I've had over the years that I hope will be helpful for you as well. Another quick thought before we move into the main portion. Let's consider the overall concept of quote-unquote finding your art style. I don't really see it as something you're trying to find. I think it's more a matter of uncovering your art style, because to me it's already there and it's already a part of you. Just like your signature, unique and perfect as it is. And just like when Dorothy is told by Glinda that it was never the shoes and that Dorothy had it within her all along. Or like Michelangelo saying that he didn't carve the person out of marble, he simply chipped away the excess stone to reveal the person encased within the rock. So here too, I think the process of finding your style is really a journey of discarding all the extras until all you're left with is the core of the true, genuine you. As you first start to search and explore, it feels like a search for originality. You think that a style means it's something unique to you, that it's instantly recognizable as yours, and you feel like you need to do something different to stand out. But through the process, you come to realize that it's really a search for what brings you joy and is authentic to who you are. So let's jump right in, and I will give you 10 different tips/thoughts that I have on this topic. Tip number 1. Think about what you liked when you first got interested in art. So that could be what you enjoyed painting the most when you were a child, or even what you gravitated toward in terms of toys. To use myself as an example, I always doodled girl faces in the margins of notebooks and drew princesses in elaborate dresses and handed them out to my friends for them to color in. Or it could be what you doodled as an adult while talking on the phone and not really thinking. Or what drew you to picking up art again at any age. Was it someone's painting? Was it wanting to capture your daily life? Basically, think about that spark that first got you interested and excited about art. I'm particularly highlighting this because that initial spark was free from societal influences and other influences that come later as you explore art more and more. So that initial interest represents something very authentic and comes from within, and could be one tool to help guide you in the right direction. Tip number 2. What art do you like looking at? Such as subject matter, do you like landscapes or portraiture, fantasy, anime, abstract, florals, etc., etc.? And also pay attention to the mediums the artist used, such as soft or oil pastels, acrylics, collage, inks, pens, pencils, graphite, oil, watercolor, gouache, marker, digital, and of course some combination of those in mixed media. Think about the color choices and the approach. Are they blended and soft, or are they sharp lines? Are there a lot of values and shadows? Are the paintings peaceful or dramatic? Are they pretty or scary? Those are some questions you can ask yourself. Now, that's not always a very clear indicator of what you would gravitate toward producing as an artist, but it's something that's helpful to analyze and think about. For example, you might like very bright color palette when other artists use it, but when you paint, you end up always picking a muted, neutral palette. Or maybe you love art that's rendered very realistically, but when you paint, you just want to be carefree and splash some paint and make loose art. So even though what you like to look at doesn't necessarily correlate with what you like to make, asking all those questions could help guide you toward figuring out what elements make good art, in your opinion, of course, because we all know good art is in the eye of the beholder. Tip number 3. This one is all about feelings. The previous tips were more introspective and analytical, even though we talked about likes and dislikes. With tip number 3, though, I'm asking you to focus on only the feelings and not even worry about attaching language to them. So this is best observed while actually creating, so you can capture it in the moment if you're being mindful. How does it feel while you're painting it? Is it relaxing? Is it exciting? Or are you bored? Does it feel like a chore or an assignment? The second consideration is, How does it feel when your work is completed and you're looking at it? Does it feel like it expresses something within you? Does it feel like an outlet, almost like journaling or venting to a friend or even a therapy session? Does it feel comforting or pleasing to look at? Is it exciting to look at it? Does it maybe bring a feeling of nostalgia or an inner warmth? Or does it feel empty or shallow? For example, you might create something you think looks good or is pleasant to look at, but doesn't feel fulfilling or satisfying. Again, this tip is not an exact science, but if you can find something that you both enjoy painting during the process of it and where you enjoy the results, then that will help guide you in the right direction. The key here is to have both. To use my own experience as an example, there are plenty of subjects I enjoy the results of but hate the process, such as painting from a photo. I like how those drawings or paintings come out, but while creating, it feels like an assignment. And then again, there are things I enjoy in the moment, but then feel somewhat empty when I'm done, such as pretty pictures, particularly flowers. They're really relaxing to create, but I don't particularly feel attached to the results when they're done. They don't really feel like they express my inner feelings or mean anything, to me at least. Okay, tip number 4. Remember that finding your style is a lifelong process. We all grow and change over our entire lives. Even when you're 97, you're still changing. So don't think of style as something that you have to find and then stick with. See it as something that's ever evolving. Even artists who had or have very specific styles will still evolve over their lives and have various phases. As the quote goes, change is the only constant. Tip number 5. Take the time to analyze your art and figure out what you like and don't like about it. You know how they say it takes 10,000 hours of practice to get good at a skill? But it's not just mindless practice that's needed. It's pointed, analytic practice, where you focus on the little aspects that can be improved and with each session work on those. Atomic Habits by James Clear talks about improvement through incremental changes. You want to always be refining what you're doing, and that refining is what leads you to you not just getting better, but to developing your style, because you're looking to hone in and maximize the things you like and minimize the things you don't. So over time, the art becomes more and more what you like and what represents you as an artist. Tip number 6. Building on the last tip, this one is about quantity over quality. Be prolific. This helps with getting more time spent in pointed practice, and this also helps to avoid getting caught up in perfectionism. It allows you to not take yourself so seriously, to loosen up, to enjoy the process more. Remember, no one starts out good at something from the very beginning. Don't compare your present abilities or where you are to someone's past. Those people you admire with a well-defined style were once where you are now. So focus on producing work no matter how good or bad it is right now, and think of it almost like paying your dues. By creating art that isn't where you want it to be now, you're making it possible for the future you to one day create exactly what you envision. Focusing on quantity, maybe making art daily, even if it's only for 5 minutes, gives you that many more opportunities to make mistakes, to refine things, and to try out different topics and mediums to finally discover what suits you best. As Van Gogh said, if there is a voice within you that says you can't paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. Action is the antidote to doubt. Tip number 7. This one is a bit similar to the previous 2 tips, and it's to take risks. Try all the genres, styles, mediums, approaches, topics, etc., etc. If you're worried about messing up, then get cheap sketchbooks and art supplies so you don't feel bad about quote-unquote wasting them. Keep quote-unquote ugly sketchbooks. Those ones that include quick idea sketches jotted down and notes and all sorts of nonsense you'd never show anyone. But the idea is to try all the things out and not be afraid to mess up. Not be afraid to create something quote-unquote ugly or something you're not proud of. Our fear of failure holds us back more than anything else. How are you supposed to discover something new and unique if you're afraid to do anything that isn't tried and true? As Andy Warhol said, don't think about making art, just get it done. Let everyone else decide if it's good or bad, whether they love it or hate it. And while they're deciding, make even more art. Tip number 8. Visualize. Visualization has been proven to be almost as effective as actual practice. They've done this research with people learning to play a musical instrument, as well as people trying to grow specific muscles. People visualizing the exercises had almost as much improvement as people actually doing the exercises. What does this tell us? Well, that practicing art in your mind is a very effective tool for growing your skills. But more than that, it can be just as useful for honing in and fine-tuning your art style. Visualize in your mind what you want your ideal art to look like. What is your preferred color palette? What do you envision enjoying painting? An added benefit is that you can do this at any time. You don't need to have any art supplies with you. And it's a great way to pass the time when you're bored, like being stuck in traffic, or the doctor's waiting room, or even when you're trying to fall asleep at night. It's even a great thing to do when you have art block, or those times when you have some time set aside to make art, but you open the sketchbook and nothing comes to you, or you can't get started. It's okay. Just close your eyes and imagine what those sketchbook pages would look best being filled with. What medium are you itching to pick up? But a word of caution here. Always remember that the ideal image you come up with in your mind is probably not going to come out that way on paper. You might be held back by lack of skill, or lack of a certain supply, or lack of energy or time, especially when you're first getting started, or even if you've been doing art for a while but are still working on perfecting your art style. You have to expect to be somewhat disappointed or let down by the result. As Dali put very succinctly, quote unquote, have no fear of perfection, you'll never reach it. You have to develop a critical eye where you see the shortcomings, that is, the way the result doesn't match up with your vision, and that helps you figure out what you need to keep working on. Visualization helps here too. If you can pinpoint what elements you're disappointed in, you can then visualize how you would fix them in your next artwork. But you also have to find the elements that you like and you're proud of. Those are the ones you want to make sure you keep. Tip number 9, believe in your unique view. If we think of art style as something that is unique to you, something that sets you apart enough that when people see your work, they know it's yours, then obviously your work will differ from others' work, sometimes just slightly and sometimes drastically. Of course, when someone is famous, those differences are celebrated, like Picasso's abstract figurative work. But when you're just starting out, those differences might not be appreciated by others. So then that encouragement and reinforcement and trust has to come from within, because you might not get that outside confirmation and approval until much later down the road. Picasso said, "Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once he grows up." One explanation for what he's trying to say is that all of us are born with intrinsic ability and even need to create as we grow up. But as we grow up, we lose that belief in ourselves. And another way to look at it is what we were saying earlier, that as a child you knew what you loved and what you were drawn to, but over time, societal and other influences pulled you further away from that. So the idea is to reconnect with that inner you and bring it out. When George Lucas was creating the original Star Wars series, he had a vision of what the result would look like. No one else at the time could envision it, and were pretty critical of his use of the green screen, but he persevered through that to create something that was unique at the time. As Matisse said, creativity takes courage. Another example is artists with a naive style, which is one of my favorites. What I found interesting, reading about a few of them actually, is that they thought they were capturing the world very accurately. To them, it wasn't a style or even stylized, and how others viewed their art didn't skew their approach or make them change their ways. And thank God, all the artists creating in a style that didn't exist before they came along didn't get scared off by society frowning down on them. Otherwise, we'd never have the crazy amount of variety that we do today. Kandinsky said, "There is no must in art because art is free." And finally, tip number 10. And this one is a combo of don't give up and it's never too late. I'll use one famous example. Grandma Moses took up painting at the age of 78, and only because she developed arthritis in her hands and couldn't embroider anymore. She had dabbled a little bit in art before that, but never had enough time for it. It's easy to start questioning whether we're too old to pick up a new hobby or a new skill, or don't have enough time left to find our style. As I've said before, we continue to grow and develop as long as we live. Your style will develop and grow along with you. And whether you're 20 or 80, it's never too late to go on a journey of exploration. And as long as you haven't given up, as long as you stay on that path, you will see the progress and the changes and new nuances that have the power to surprise and delight you. Remember what we said about visualization being effective? That's one of the reasons why you can take a break and stop painting, sometimes even for years, and then come back and be able to jump right back in, or even have more insights or a newer and better take on things. As long as that dream stays alive and it's something that's even on the back burner, then the process of development is taking place even if you're not actively working on it. So it's okay to walk away and come back. Take failures in stride and highlight and celebrate the little successes. And most of all, enjoy the moments you spend creating, because anything you do with love and joy will always be right and move you along on the right path. And thank you for joining me today. I hope some of these tips can be helpful to you in your own journey. I'd love to hear from you. Please comment down below which of these tips resonated with you. Also, please like and subscribe for more content like this. And if you have any other topics you'd like to see videos on, please let me know.